Hey, this is Scott of PhotographyBonzai.com. I'm going to show you some interesting news. There was an article from ImpressJapan.jp. They interviewed all of the major Japanese camera companies and tried to pull some interesting information out of them, where they're going and all that. So I'm going to look at my notes here and talk about those, a few points of each company. First one, Olympus, going to release the E5 replacement eventually. Which I say eventually, they've taken quite a long time, but I'd say that's a good thing. Olympus glass is really great, so if they do kind of go back to some of their standard SLR type cameras, that's a good thing. Next one, Canon, interested in making small cameras, but they seem kind of uninterested in having a small camera with an exchangeable lens system. So I'm kind of surprised that they wouldn't go all the way. But if they can make some nice small cameras, they're already doing that with the S100 and stuff. But if they can go even farther, I guess that should be interesting to look at. They also mentioned they want to focus on sensitivity instead of megapixels with their sensors. And they've got their own sensor design and manufacturing abilities, so that should be interesting too. Sigma, more improvements to their DP series of cameras, which are the small ones with fixed lenses. And they also mentioned a mirrorless. They're going to release mirrorless camera lenses. Sony's going more electronic, of course, with talking about electronic shutters. Want to make smaller E-mount lenses, which is always a good thing for, they make those small mirrorless cameras, but the lenses are pretty large. So if they can reduce the size of the lenses, that'll be a better fit, I think, for those type of cameras. Nikon is looking to replace their D3 and D700 cameras. They're both pretty solid cameras, so any improvements I'm sure would be even better. Compacts with a focus on ergonomics to kind of counteract the influx of cell phone cameras. Now that is a pretty good focus because, the cell phone's probably not going to get any more easier to use as a camera than they already are unless you kind of make it into a camera. So if you focus on all the ergonomic aspects of making a good camera, then it'll probably be interesting towards all the people who want to move away from cell phones and have something more focused on taking photos. So that's a good thing too. Fujifilm is all interested in their high-class cameras that they've been making, like the X100 and X10, I think it is. They want to focus on faster speeds in the camera, focusing speed and all that, which is, I haven't used those cameras much, so from what I've seen, they could use some improvements in that area, which is going to be interesting. They also mentioned a mirrorless camera with better quality than a full-frame camera. I'm not sure what they mean by that. We should just hold off and see what, maybe it's a sensor around the size of full frame that's somehow better. I don't know. As for Pentax, as you know, I'm a Pentax user. I'm going to go over a little bit more probably than the other companies, but they mentioned 100% viewfinders for all DSLR cameras. So as you might know, the KR was discontinued, so we can assume the replacement will have a 100% viewfinder. Good for everyone. Some of the cheaper cameras have like a 92% viewfinder, which means you'll be missing some of what you're photographing when you're looking in the viewfinder. Having 100% view is definitely a good thing for everyone. They also mentioned, which is kind of hinting at, they don't want to commit to something so grand as mirrorless full-frame cameras and mirrorless 645D cameras, which is medium format. If they actually do go that far, that should be really interesting. I'm even more interested in the 645D than the full frame. Definitely a really serious camera. You've got the large medium format sensor, but in a smaller size, presumably without a mirror. You won't have the small vibrations when the mirror moves up and down when you take a photo. That could be good quality wise. The next one here, they mentioned they're really happy with the Ricoh acquisition. They have more room to grow and try new things, of course, with like the mirrorless full frame and 645D cameras, that's definitely somewhere to expand into something no one's tried before. He also mentioned he thinks cheap SLRs will be replaced by mirrorless cameras. I think that's the case too, because the SLRs have more moving parts and probably more expensive to build. We'll just see those kind of go away eventually, and then we'll see all of the mirrorless APS-C cameras take their place. He also mentioned Pentax is aiming for high image quality with smaller camera bodies. So all of the DSLRs, they'll continue the process of making them smaller, but of course with the Pentax focus on ergonomics and all that. So with the K7, K5 series, they were smaller than the K10D and the K20D, but still had the same functionality, still was actually more functionality and good layout of camera buttons and all that. So it should be interesting to see improvements in making the DSLRs smaller, but also keeping good functionality and good ergonomics to them. Last one is Ricoh. Of course, they're now Ricoh Pentax. Kind of the same, but they had both companies in there. As I mentioned in the previous article on my website, I'd say that I said that Ricoh should release a Pentax mount for the GXR, and they confirmed that in this interview. So there should be a Pentax mount GXR module. That should be really interesting to see. I'd say that's a good move on their part to merge together the Pentax and Ricoh lines in a way, because now Pentax users will have a reason to check out the GXR system. They also mentioned zoom lens modules for the GXR. They already have some, but I guess they're going to add more. And another interesting one is compact black and white camera. So I guess the camera can only take black and white photos, but I'm sure there will be some type of focus on really high quality tonal range black and white. So that should be interesting to see if they actually go forth with that black and white focused camera. So that's about it for the interview. I might try some more news in the future, see how it works out. Hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks.